Hello, in this video we shall evaluate the attractiveness of Relaxo Footwear shares as an investment opportunity. I did a similar video on BATA India last week and I urge you to watch that video to get the complete context. Coming back to Relaxo Footwears, Rupee 1 invested in the company about 10 years ago has already converted itself into Rupees 41. That's quite a handsome return. In this video, we shall try to evaluate what's really behind the performance for Relaxo. Relaxo has been present in the country of India mainly through 8 brands. They have tried to follow a different pricing as well as the retail strategy as compared to BATA India. Just what I did in case of BATA, what I tried to do is look at these different segments, for example sports, and I tried to look at the price point in which Relaxo is operating across the different segments. What I immediately notice is that Relaxo is tackling the low end of the price points within the market. The average selling price for their products is about Rs 135 as compared to 630 rupees for BATA India. Relaxo very cleverly utilizes the famous Bollywood personalities to tackle different segments of the market and appeal to different segments. Next, I move to the supply chain of Relaxo, and the supply chain looks very similar to what a typical manufacturing company would look like. You have suppliers on one end, you have manufacturing plants with a lot of workers out there, then you have customer fulfillment centers, and then you have different sales channels, and finally moving on to the different markets. What I would specifically like to highlight in this particular picture is that the model that Relaxo is following is, rather than creating their own retail channel in big numbers, they rely on the independent distributors and retailers to take the product over to the consumers. This is quite a different model wherein BATA was trying to create their own branded stores. This model, what Relaxo is following, helps the company to keep its rental cost low while at the same time approach more and more consumers. So far, if I try to summarize, the main competitive advantages what I see in case of Relaxo is they have managed to create a brand for themselves by cleverly utilizing the Bollywood personalities. Second, they have focused a lot on the systems, whether it's market research, whether it's improving the manufacturing processes, or even getting the regular feedback from the sales channels. All these systems have helped the company to get the real-time feedback from the market. And if I look at the number of pairs that the company has been selling, they have been growing at a very rapid pace. Last year alone, Relaxo sold almost 18 crore pairs. Next, we shall look at the fundamental analysis of Relaxo from 6 or 7 parameters, just as we did in case of BATA. Let us start with the capital allocation policy. If I look at the dividend payout ratio, that is amount of earnings that the company is paying to its shareholders as dividends, Relaxo gives about 10% of its earnings back to the shareholders. That's quite a small number as compared to BATA India. What does exactly Relaxo do with the earnings it has retained in the system? Next, I look at the sources of the cash flow and sources of the equity, and I also notice that company has not been raising any equity in last 10 years, which basically means that the retained earnings of the company have been growing, and that has then helped the company to reduce its debt to equity ratio. On this specific parameter, I would rate the company's performance as excellent. Next, I move to the growth metrics for the company. I look at the revenue trend, I look at the net profit after tax, I also look at the free cash flows. The performance of the company has been quite good in terms of increasing the revenue and net profit after tax, but what I do notice is that the free cash flows have not been consistent over the years. I think the main reason is that the company is trying to invest in a lot of capex by building new factories to meet the growing volume numbers. So while I'm overall happy on this metrics, we'll have to watch out for the free cash flows as we go forward. Next, I move to the quality of the earnings for the company. Here I basically try to evaluate whether the profit and loss and cash flow are in sync with each other and company is not using any accounting shenanigans to mislead its investors. While we look at many parameters, I specifically present to you excess cash margin as one of the metric. And what I've noticed is that the company's performance has been quite good overall, managing the cash flows and the profit and loss. Once again, I would rate the company's performance as quite good on this parameter. Next, I move to the quality of the management. There are 3 or 4 things which were a bit concerning for me on this particular front. Let me start by presenting to you the family which runs Relaxo Footwears. Here you look at the entire family chart of people who are owning about 70% of the company. You will see it's primarily a couple of promoters and their families who are deeply involved in not only owning the company, but all the key roles within the company, such as head of finance, head of marketing, head of retail. They're all given within the family. So company has not really gone through a big succession plan or a change of the management over last few years, or actually last couple of decades. We'll have to carefully monitor how company is able to do a smooth transition towards new management, and hence then whether the future is as secure as the present and the past have been. Next, what I did notice is that there were a couple of structures in the related party wherein the transactions were happening between Relaxo Footwear and those related party companies. A company has clearly tried to simplify its structure when it comes to bringing the associates also part of Relaxo Footwears through the scheme of merger. So while the overall company structure has been simplified in the later years, I would say that in the initial years, the structure was not very conducive to the minority shareholders. So again, we'll have to keep our eye on the overall structure for the company going forward. Lastly, I looked at the management compensation as a percentage of revenue. I felt that the management compensation as percentage of revenue has been increasing while the overall trend for BATA India was quite static in nature. So I would say that the performance of the company on this particular parameter is maybe something we need to keep our eye on. Next, I move to the valuation of the company. What I notice is on 8 or 9 parameters I specifically track, the company is quite expensive really on the valuation front. There are multiple reasons. This is a consumer company with a lot of growth potential behind, and hence the valuation is high. But I would see as an investor, I'm not very happy from the valuation point of view. Finally, coming to the risks related to this particular investment opportunity. If I present to you the overall risk map I had created, there were 10 odd risks I had highlighted. But the one which I would again try to highlight is the risks related to management, which we discussed quite much in detail a while back. So as a conclusion of our analysis, I would say Relaxo has proven itself over decades, and they have been showing growth potential in terms of getting more and more consumer share. But I would be keeping my eye specifically on the actions of the management. At this stage, I could consider allocating a small part of my portfolio, up to 5% of my portfolio, to the company. But at the same time, I'll continue evaluating the actions of the management. I hope through this video and the last video, you were able to understand how exactly can we go around evaluating the companies which are specifically in the manufacturing domain. We shall continue our journey while evaluating some new companies. For example, I'm now picking up paint companies within India. In case you would like to get the detailed report of Relaxo Footwears or BATA India, feel free to write to me at rahul@refine.finance. Thank you.